Good morning and welcome to what would have been a fantastic show today with my great friend and mentor, Mr. Pat Garrett. However, illness has overtaken him and he will not be joining us today. And I have to be very considerate, considering we hung out with George Jones, who was referred to as the possum because he was frequently just a no show at his own concert. So, Pat, I'm hoping that's not what rubbed off on you, and hope you're feeling better really soon. Um, Definitely miss you from the show. We'll reschedule and we'll do this again. But let me tell you a little bit about my great friend Pat. Um, Pat and I met over 20 years ago. We ad in a local paper for a clown to participate in live performances by a band. You know, they always have the funny guy. And I saw this and I thought, I've done stand up and maybe this is something to do. So I gave the number a call and sure enough got a hold of Pat and he said, "Well, come on out and talk to me." So we met and seemed to hit it off really well. And I ended up helping with the band, being part of the show and doing doing some of the work as like the funny guy, but it wasn't a real formal thing. It was more just interjection, which was great. I mean, it worked real well. And Pat and I got to know each other, and he was instrumental in getting me started in the entertainment business, in the music and public speaking, being in front of folks, and really just having a good time doing it. And Pat is just a wealth of wisdom. Um, if you're fortunate enough to spend some time with Pat, you're going to learn a lot. And that may not even be your intent going in. You just want to kind of like rub elbows and visit with them for a little bit. But all you have to do is listen a little bit and you will learn a lot. And over the years, Pat has been a great mentor. He's had no problem with me, coming back to him with questions and advice, seeking advice, and he's always been there and willing to help. He's great, and that's one of the things that really makes Pat great is his willingness to help. Very humble in that regard, and through Pat, we got to spend a lot of time with some entertainers that, as a younger lad, and this is before meeting Pat, which was in my 30s, that I got to meet Pat, but some folks that were kind of like iconic, and you think they're from another planet because you really don't envision yourself meeting them. You think they're just from another world because they put on such fantastic shows and really have great things going on, like Eddie Money. When I was a kid, Eddie Money was like this superhero from from somewhere that was untouchable. Eddie Money. Wow. Well, I got to work a show at Pat's Amphitheater, and Eddie Money was the headliner. And what a great guy! What a great guy! Never in my life did I think I would be at the end of the stage with Eddie Money while he's performing. He and his band, and his entire band was fantastic. I mean, really great guys. It's amazing how many of these people are really down to earth, happy to spend time with you, appreciate you as a fan and as a person, and you can spend some really quality time with these folks. And like I say, visiting with Eddie Money and his band was phenomenal. George Jones, we've got to visit with George Jones, and these people that I'm talking about, while they came out to the amphitheater, I was fortunate enough to be their personal bodyguard while they were there. Um, and I guess what I'm really saying is it was just some time to be up close and personal with them, and it's really nice to be able to talk to the person and not the star, And George Jones was a little bit of a different breed. Um, wow. Um, George was pretty standoffish. He was like, "Don't talk to me, don't look at me, uh, but don't let anybody close to me." And that was cool. Hey, you know, you earned that, brother. I'm glad to provide what I can for you. And I got to visit with Loretta Lynn, and what a wonderful Southern person, um, true Southern lady. And her son and I got to arm wrestle, and I got to admit, he whooped me. Arm wrestling at Pat Garrett's uh, Roadhouse in Strausstown while he had that going. And Loretta and her band, and of course, her son Eddie, were there to perform. And Eddie and I got to talking and hanging out. And really cool guy, and challenged me to an arm wrestling contest, which I thought, well, yeah, of course I'm going to win. And he's quite a strong young lad, I'll tell you that. So that's a loss I don't mind fessing up to. And Charlie Daniels, wow, Charlie Daniels was a fantastic human being. Um, he invited Pat and I onto his tour bus, and we sat across the table with him and just had a good half hour of nothing but pure Charlie Daniels at his finest. One of the greatest moments, you know, that I can remember was just spending time with Charlie Daniels on his bus and being in the company of someone who was a legend in his own time. Um, just beautiful, beautiful time. And he made us feel very comfortable right at home. Um, you know, I can't say enough good and positive things about Charlie Daniels. And Tanya Tucker, I got to meet Tanya Tucker. And again, when I was a young lad in my late teens, and that's not that long ago, so watch what you're saying. When Miss Tucker first came out, and the whole Glenn Campbell scenario, she was just like took the world by storm. And you know, did I ever think I would visit with her, meet her? Of course not. Yet here I am. I'm walking around at the amphitheater up on the stage, and I see this lovely young lady sitting on a picnic bench up on the stage, and you know, in the back area, and just walking by. And this is too funny. This is too funny. I had the thought to ask her, how is it working with Tanya Tucker? And the spirit inside me told me, don't do that. Don't do that. So I just went over and I said, hello, how are you? And when she looked up, I realized I was indeed speaking with Tanya Tucker. So I was quite glad that I was in tune to the spirit to tell me, you know, you have 2 feet, don't put one of them in your mouth. So I had a nice chat with Miss Tucker, and again, just a real person, you know, a real wonderful, warm, glad to speak with you human being. Um, so I'm bringing all this out just to say thank you and pay tribute to Pat, because without him and his cousin Johnny and Jeff, Pat's son, and some other folks actually building the amphitheater by themselves. And I'm talking about everything from excavation. Pat had a backhoe out there that I used to try and get stuck. Uh, and dump truck, and you know, the whole bit, everything you need, including tools and compressors and whatnot for construction. And they built the amphitheater. They didn't hire a company to come in and construct this. They built it. And you know, it's the old adage: if you build it, folks will come. And sure enough, what a great venue. And I know Pat took a little bit of time off, but I don't have his schedule in front of me right now. But I know for 2024, he's going ahead with concerts and performances. I know there's a Pink Floyd tribute band coming there, I believe in September, August or September, and he's got some other acts booked in between. You can find this information at just Google Pat Garrett, and you should be able to find patgarrettentertainment.com and visit there, and you'll be able to pull up the schedule of events that Pat has going on and things that he's doing. And Pat is, I can't say enough good things about Pat. Um, he also Pat is an amazing man. Um, when it comes to wealth, and a lot of folks would say, "Well, gee, when is enough enough?" You know, is it the time where you could just decide you've got plenty and you're going to kick back and rest on your laurels? And Pat is not wired that way, regardless of the amount, whatever one might consider enough. That's irrelevant to Pat. Um, Pat is not the kind of guy that walks around counting his money or letting you know he may have some in the bank. That's not who Pat is. Pat is a very humble, everyday, working hard guy. Um, in fact, one morning I asked Pat because he's usually up and in his office by like 4 o'clock in the morning. And one morning I happened to ask him, Pat, what is your secret? What keeps you going? What's your drive? And he said, "Well, Sal," he said, "I wake up every morning and tell myself I'm broke. I am totally broke. And that gives me the motivation to go out each day and continue working, continue earning money." And his office, we visited in the Sycamore Sheepskin shop right off of Route 78 in Strausstown, Pennsylvania. It's on the northeast corner of Route 78 and 183. And he's got a banging, booming, awesome sheepskin outlet going on there. They manufacture and produce coats in shop, coats and garments and gloves and hats, and ship them all over the world. And one day I happened to ask Pat. Obviously, I've had many, many conversations with Pat. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. Um, and I said to him, Pat, I said, is the sheepskin business kind of like your cash cow? And he said, cash cow? Oh my God, no. He said, it's a pig. It's a cash pig. That is a huge part of Pat's success and business enterprises. And it's not something that's like top billing. It's something he does well with the folks that help him produce these sheepskin coats and send them, globally, because of the quality and the fact that they're made from original. I don't mean to say rough cut because that might imply the hides are not well treated. However, they are perfectly treated. By rough cut, I mean they are not pattern cut. He gets them as they are, and from there they manufacture and produce beautiful coats and hats and vests and things of that nature. So, Pat, as we're talking about his success and the fact that his many successes are to him only something to share with others. It's not Pat is not the kind of guy to gloat and say, "Ha, you know what?" He's not that guy. If you want to sit down with him and say, "Hey, Pat, how did you do this?" He'll be happy to tell you, um, because Pat obviously believes in a few very strong principles, and one is to use money and not people. Um, and the other is he knows to give it away. In order to grow, you need to give it away. You need to help others become successful, and that will in turn continue to help your success grow. And that's a principle that a lot of folks don't really grasp, but it's something that I picked up from Pat very early on. Was, hey, let me show you the way. Let me help you out. And if you really want to get there, I'm in your corner. And I'm certainly not there. Um, I am much further along in a path of success than I had been or even was a week ago. And that's kind of our mission in life. If we can grow 1% each day, um, we're doing the right thing. We're on the right track. So being able to reach out to Pat at various times and in various situations has been like enormous for me. Um, just to be able to say, "Hey, Pat, this is what I'm looking at, and here's what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And oftentimes, Pat will give me a whole different perspective, which makes far more sense than what I'm considering. So Pat, thank you for everything you do, um, and everything you have done, and for the folks that you entertain. That's another thing, you know. Um, Pat's probably going on 35, 36 years old by now. Um, and, at some point in life, a lot of folks say, well, yeah, I think I'd rather become a spectator instead of a performer. Um, and Pat loves performing. He loves making music. He loves writing songs and performing them. And his passion just continues to make him great and keep him busy, keep him entertaining folks. Uh, One of his latest songs is called I'll Stand, and it couldn't describe his patriotic heart any better. It's a song. If you have any trouble securing it, give us a call here at the station, at the studio rather. Uh, Pat has a radio station as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. But give a call here to the studio at 717 or send an email to sal at wmrcstudios.com, and I'll make sure to get it to you. It's a great song. It's about to hit a whole lot of RNC rallies and conventions, and really, it's going to be a catalyst to rallying as we get closer to November. Pat's touring. He's in Nashville often uh, to record, and he'll write a song, but not a song, but a few songs, right? It's like, yeah, I'm going to go to Nashville and write this one song and cut it. Um, but he'll go down and do some studio work and produce some great, great music along with his lovely wife, Miss Susie Dalton. And Susie is really legendary in her own right. She's a bass player and yeah, a songstress. Um, she has a beautiful voice and has some very wonderful songs in Italian um, that are out. And just as I say, in her own right, she's just wonderful as a performer and even better to visit with as a human being. Susie is a wonderful, wonderful person, very warm hearted, kind, loving. And again, her and Pat have that kindred spirit. How can we help? How can we help you become the best person you can be? And that's priceless. I'm truly honored to be able to share stages, share time, and just share space with these folks. I couldn't be more blessed. In fact, that reminds me, um, Pat decided he was going to go into the chicken business and hired this guy, this carpenter, to build a chicken coop. And it was it was a wonderful experience because Pat really had no intent of going into the chicken business. I believe his thought was, "Hey, I've got these couple of chickens running around here, and there's this little building over there, and I think it would really suit well as a house for them, a home for these chickens." So he said to me at the time, uh, he had given me affectionately the nickname of Don Juan. And he said to me one day, he said, "Hey, Don Juan, how about building me a chicken coop?" And thinking he was kidding, I said, "Well, of course, how soon do you want it done?" And he said, "Well, come on, I'll show you where." And sure enough, we went out, and that was exactly what he was, had in mind was, here's this little building. Can you turn it into a chicken coop? And we can get these chickens into their homes, and they're happy. We're happy. And, hey, if we get an egg or two out of it, great. So, so it's kind of like, I guess I really can't share the full uh, content of the humor, the meaning of the chicken coop story, but it was just another example of Pat being an everyday guy. He didn't pick up his phone and call his manager and say, "You know what? How about if you reach out and find somebody that can contact Don Juan and tell him I want a chicken coop built and blah blah blah. No, that's not who Pat is. Pat is very personable, very available, and very willing to visit and chat with you. Such is the case with Miss Taylor Swift. Um, Pat truly is the man who launched her career. I know I was there. I can't say I was part of the activity. I was a spectator, and at that time, um, and Taylor and her father would come up to the Roadhouse and do karaoke. And on occasion or two, I'm going to put it this way: at that time, I was Don Juan, so I'm going to have to say, during this period in time, she had the privilege and honor of doing a duet with Don Juan. Now you say, yeah, okay, look at this mega superstar, and fantastic for her. Let's talk about how she got there. And visiting with Pat Garrett was the beginning, not taking away anything from her talent, of course, or her hard work, or her father Scott's determination. Uh, he was her greatest advocate, and I'm sure still is. But doing the karaoke at the Roadhouse uh, got her some exposure, and eventually Pat plays every year out at Canobles Grove, an amusement park in Ellensburg, PA, and scheduled to have her come out and do a guest appearance. And that was really her first exposure to I'm on stage in front of folks, in front of a crowd. And it fit her very well, suited her very well. And this was her beginning. And she began really working hard at it, with a passion. This is what she wanted to do. And she was going for it. Her father, Scott, was, as I say, her greatest advocate. And as she was building her momentum, Scott came to Pat one day and said, you know, we want, to pursue this country music. What advice might you give? And Pat's words were, if it's country music that you want, then you go to Nashville. That's where country music is. Um, so to cut to the chase, uh, Scott took Taylor and family to Nashville and began building a career that required tremendous dedication, tremendous hard work. Um, Through the early years, uh, as she was becoming known, um, writing her own music about her own experiences, and it kind of created a niche for her, which is fantastic. To be able to take her life experiences and turn them into something that becomes golden uh, to the ears of the public is a huge accomplishment, a huge and unique feat, which she has been blessed to do. And as she pushed on and continued on, of course, the natural progression took hold. And good Lord, now here we are. We're able to say, we have some memories, and we love this global superstar as she has become by the name of Taylor Swift. And Taylor, if you get any part of this interview ever, or anybody says, "Hey, we heard Sal mention you and talk about you a little bit on his show," we love you. We're so happy to have been part of your life in the early days, and wish you nothing but obvious, pure success. Thank you, and good night.